Hey everyone, this is Jax again from the Popcorn Review Podcast, and today this episode is going to be about a couple of anime or cartoons. I will say that one of them is Invincible, and the other one's Sakamoto Days. We'll go off with Invincible first. Invincible right now is on Prime. I personally have never read Invincible comics. I actually got into it with my son. Started watching it on Saturday mornings. Crazy ass show, crazy ass animation. Definitely gives me a kind of a Dragon Ball Z vibe, if that makes sense to anybody. They have an alien race that comes to Earth or goes to different planets and tries to take over by sending someone to kind of infiltrate the planet and then take over from it from within, kind of like what Omni-Man did in episode one. Um, Also has a son with a human, similar to what he did with Chi Chi. So you have Omni Man, having a child, Mark, on Earth. He doesn't get his powers right away. Kind of feels like he's not worthy enough to have the powers of his dad. Gets him when he's, I think, about 17 or so, if I'm not mistaken. And then around that time frame, when he does get his powers, he realizes his dad is actually there to take over the world. The dad slowly gets rid of like the Avengers or the Justice Heroes or the Justice League, I should say. And then he kind of like kills them off. Pretty much gives Mark an ultimatum like, hey, either join me or you will die, type of deal. Mark pretty much fought him off, said no. His dad's literally beaten him into submission. He's literally in the ground in season one and just beating him into the ground, like straight up destroying his son. Realize what he's doing is wrong. Omni Man flies off. Um, Season two, you have Mark pretty much coming into his own, has his powers, and he is pretty much trying to get away from not being the son of Omni Man. He wants to be his own person, but he feels like he has that anger because his father kind of like betrayed his trust. So it's definitely a really good story. Right now, like I mentioned, all three seasons are on Amazon Prime. So if you have it, catch it there. Highly recommend this show. Right now, you have season three. Don't want to go into too much in case people didn't watch it, but season three right now shows Mark kind of fighting the multiverse of himself. So he goes against, I think, like 10 or 12 versions of himself that are all pretty much crazy as hell, like the whole Viltrum army. So it's pretty crazy to see how in each different universe, Mark is portrayed with a different suit, different attitude, and just insane. Like in most of the universes, he killed his own mother. Some of the universes, he killed his father. So some of the universes he follows his father. So this is like the only universe that Mark is actually a good guy or fights back against them. So definitely a really good show. Um, I will say that one of my favorite seasons so far, I know it's only been season three. I just feel like they just keep setting the bar higher and higher. Um, and this season, Mark was just pretty much, I think every episode he was fighting a new pretty much Viltrum coming in, trying to pretty much tell him that you got to finish your father's mission or you'll be held accountable. And pretty much it just gets stronger and stronger as the story progresses. At one point he, I think, gets a call from his dad or something on another planet, finds out that his dad got remarried and is actually a good guy on this planet. He's a savior instead of a destroyer. So now Mark is mad at him over that, like, you couldn't do that for me, but you're doing it here, type of deal. He's really upset. Mark then realizes that his father also had a child with this lady. So not only is Mark upset with his dad, he got a half brother. But with this race, they're actually like aliens, but they're kind of like bug people. So kind of humanoids, but they look more like bugs, type of deal. Um, they get found out. The father and son are there. They're fighting off a few people from the Viltrum army. So it's like, I think it's like 4 versus 2, but they pretty much decimate that entire planet. Mark ends up escaping, saves his brother, takes his brother to Earth, presents his brother to his mom, and says, "This is our brother. Dad had another kid," type of deal. The only difference is because, his father had a baby with a different type of alien race, his little brother ages a lot faster than normal kids. So I would say within a few seasons, a few episodes, he went from being like a toddler to a 10-year old, like a blink of an eye. Like he pretty much just jumped that fast. Um, on top of that, like he's super strong. He gets his powers way before Mark ever did. So Mark is now kind of like, damn, my little brother is already stronger than me than I was at that age. So he's kind of look at that too, like, damn, not only is he my half little brother, he's also already stronger than I was at that age. So I feel like he's kind of upset about that. The mother took it really hard at first, saying that how can he do this to me? He had another kid type of deal. But then she kind of falls in love with Oliver, which is the little brother. I think that's what they named him. I'm not sure if Omni Man named him. I don't remember that, to be honest with you. But they call him Oliver. And then he gets his powers. He was kind of pretending like he didn't have his powers at the time because he didn't want them to get upset with him. Um, Little by little, he has a suit similar to his father with the O on the chest for Omni Man, which is Oliver. Kind of makes sense. The only difference is that he kind of has a mixture of Mark's logo and his dad's logo with the colors. So, his dad used to be red and white. Mark at one point, was blue and yellow. So he's like black, yellow, and red, kind of like getting both of his inspirations from his father and his brother. So that's really cool. But this season, Oliver's trying to do his best, but Oliver's getting his ass whooped a lot of the times. A lot of the times a mom is like, don't go out there, don't do that type of deal. But, he wants to save his brother. He feels like he needs to do something. So I definitely respect that. I kind of get like the Robin slash Superboy kind of vibe from him. He's definitely willing to put his life on the line. And he has, against Conquest, he saved Mark's life in that fight. But Conquest knocked out all of his fucking teeth. Like all of his teeth were knocked out. And at one point he had him over his head and he's like stretching him almost as if he's gonna rip his body in half. And Conquest is, if he's not the strongest one that Vilcrum Army has so far, they're gonna do some damage because every episode Mark kept fighting a different person and they just kept getting extra exponentially stronger and stronger and stronger. So and then that Conquest fight, you know, um, Adam Eve or Samantha shows up, saves Mark because at one point Mark was getting destroyed. I think Mark had like a broken hand, he had a broken leg, broken arm, if I'm not mistaken. Like he was just getting destroyed by this guy. And Samantha shows up, saves him, or at least stops him from getting beat down. And he pretty much destroys Samantha, punches her in the side of the face, her whole cheek. I think when tongue was like hanging out of her side of her mouth. He like stabbed her in the stomach to point that her guts were hanging out, her intestines were hanging out. Um, and then she's kind of like laying off to the side somewhere. And then out of nowhere, you know, he starts beating up on Mark again. And, he kind of leans into Mark and says, I'm lonely type of deal. Like, even though he was an alien, he kind of showed Mark that he was still human. He still needed that affection from someone. He was lonely because they used him as a weapon and not as like a person or a human, if that makes sense. I know that he's an alien, but he's still kind of, he's still a humanoid, but he's just like, I'm so sorry that I have to do this. I don't even have a name. They call me Conquest. They can't even spend time to give me a real name. They use me as a weapon. I don't have anybody. Everyone's scared of me type of deal. And then he leans into Mark and into his ear and says, "Now take that shit to your grave." And then just starts beating him down again. That was the craziest scene ever. Um, Conquest, I think, even though he's the bad guy, I would say he's probably one of my favorite characters, even though he got his ass whooped at the end. Mark ends up coming back, beats him down. He's literally, like I said, broken arms, broken legs. He takes his forehead and just starts slamming his forehead into his face. Just keep slamming this into his face, and you hear it break in. You see the blood all over Mark. Definitely a graphic cartoon or anime. Definitely recommend it to anybody. As of right now, you haven't seen Omni Man do much. He did have a couple episodes this season, season 3. He's coming to Earth with Alan, but I think at some point they're going to end up just showing up to help because Mark can't do it by himself. Adam Eve can't do it with him. Yes, they have heroes, but a lot of them died when the multiverse of Marks came and tried to take them out. It took out a lot of heroes. Don't know how many are left. The season ended. I think it was only 8 episodes this time around. Really short season, to be honest with you. Can't wait for season 4. If I'm not mistaken, they've already announced season 4. This show can be on for a long time. So definitely show your support for them guys. Again, they're on Amazon. Highly recommend this show. Some of the fight scenes are insane. You definitely feel the emotion in this show. Highly recommend, again, on Amazon. 3 seasons deep. If I'm not mistaken, they've already said that they're going to do a season 4, guys. Again, highly recommend this show. Another show that I've been watching lately with Saturday mornings with my sons is Sakamoto Days. Definitely an anime. Got the anime vibe. Sakamoto is actually an ex-assassin, and he ends up retiring, falling in love, and having a family. And he just works in a grocery store that his wife's family ran at one point. And people start coming after him from his past. And the way that the first episode starts is actually a guy that Finn that he used to work with, and he comes after him and he points a gun at him at the door at the store and shoots him pretty close, about maybe 5-10 feet, shoots at him, and he spits like a gumball or throws a gumball at him, and it ricochets the bullet off and pushes the bullet off. Like, he has like crazy agility, crazy marksmanship. But the crazy thing is he's this real fat guy now. So once he retired and got married, he became a real heavy set guy, and people think he can't hang no more. Well, he can hang. So he can definitely still throw down with these guys. It looks like every episode so far, he kind of befriends someone, or he knew someone that's coming after him, and they kind of like, hey, we're going to squash this. But he becomes friends with a lot of people. So they actually have like a bigger group behind the scenes coming after him. Pretty much they have like $1 billion on his head if anybody takes him out. So he has like literally every episode is a different assassin trying to kill him and him trying to stop that person. Um, Sakamoto's wife knows about his past, but she pretty much told him, if you're going to be with me, you got to stop all that nonsense from the past. I don't want you doing that no more. So he tries to hide it from her, but she still ends up finding out in some of the episodes. So he definitely tries to hide it. Like, there's an amusement park episode that they're being chased around an amusement park, and like they're in a haunted house. The wife and kid think it's part of the show, but they're actually being chased by assassins dressed up in the horror, like in the Halloween mask and stuff. So it's pretty crazy. They're fighting on roller coasters. They're fighting on Ferris wheels. They're fighting on top of buildings. And again, the stuff that this guy Sakamoto does, it's weird because, like with Dragon Ball Z, they evolve into the next form, Super Saiyan 1, 2, 3, whatever the case is. This one, he's like a fat guy, and he kind of de-evolves into his old self if he's being pressured enough by the assassin. Like, there's been a few episodes that somebody definitely pushed him to his limits. I don't know where like smoke happens, and then he's his skinny self from like 5 or 10 years ago. Crazy show. Definitely got that anime vibe. Right now it's on Netflix. Episodes been coming out on Saturday mornings, so highly recommend that show. Again, you have Invincible, 3 seasons deep on Amazon Prime. Season 4 is gonna come, from what I'm hearing. Sakamoto Days, very good anime. Highly recommend that as well. Um, Not sure if Netflix is going to give it another season or not. I know a lot of the time Netflix might do like 1 or 2 seasons of a show and then cancel it. I do like this show. Hopefully Netflix decides to keep it. Again, guys, 2 seasons, or 2 shows, I should say. Invincible with 3 seasons on Prime. Sakamoto Days, as of right now, 1 season on Netflix, guys. Highly recommend both of these shows. If you haven't watched them yet, go ahead and do so. And again, guys, this is Jax from the Popcorn Review Podcast. Have a great one.